Kodiak bear versus polar bear. Who would win a fight between these two giant bears? A fight between a polar bear and a Kodiak bear is a human fancy that can never happen in nature. Polar bears are the kings of Arctic ice sheets, while Kodiak bears have been isolated to the Kodiak archipelago for 12,000 years. Their paths never cross. Polar bear and Kodiak bear are two different species, not only in their diet, habitat, and distribution, but also in their behavior. The only common trait between the two predators is their size. They are almost of the same size. Either way, both animals have long fascinated biologists for their super strength and ability to take down prey nearly the size of their own. Size and description. Kodiak bears are the largest subspecies of the brown bears, which has given them a reputation in the wild as being a force to reckon with. The males can grow to be about 10 feet tall, 3 meters, and weigh from 800 to 1,400 pounds, 362 to 635 kilograms. The females are smaller than that, but still a very large size overall. They can be about 500 to 700 pounds, 226 to 317 kilograms. This particular bear is brown in color. The overall coloring on the face is going to be lighter than what is found on the rest of the body. This is the distinct way to tell them apart from the grizzly bear. The enormous head of the Kodiak bear is worth taking a close look at. They also have powerful teeth and jaws that can tear through prey very quickly. They have bulky bodies so that they can store up fat. The claws of a Kodiak bear are very sharp and long. They don't have very good eyesight, but they make up for it with their great sense of hearing and smell. Polar bears are extremely large animals. While both sexes look alike, males are about twice the size of females. An adult male ranges from 7.9 to 9.8 feet in length and weighs 770 to 1,500 pounds. The largest male polar bear on record weighed 2,209 pounds. Females measure 5.9 to 7.9 feet in length and weigh between 330 to 550 pounds. However, females can double their weight when pregnant. With their small ears and tails and short legs, polar bears are adapted to life in the Arctic cold. Their large feet help distribute weight on ice and snow. Strong, sharp claws are also important for gaining traction, for digging through ice, and for killing prey. Range and habitat. The Kodiak bear subspecies ranges only in the Kodiak archipelago in southwestern Alaska. The islands they live on include Kodiak, Sitkalidak, Afognak, Uganik, Shuyak, Raspberry, and some adjacent islands. This means the bears have a range of approximately 5,000 square miles of islands. These large mammals live exclusively in subpolar climates, just below the Arctic Circle. The archipelago is in close proximity to the ocean, which provides a variety of food sources. On the islands, habitats can range from dense forest to icy mountains. Some islands also have flat tundra, hills, streams, and lakes, all of which bears also utilize. In some instances, Kodiak bears inhabit more urban areas, particularly garbage dumps. Most polar bears occur north of the Arctic Circle to the North Pole. There are some populations south of the Arctic Circle in the Hudson Bay of Manitoba, Canada. Polar bears live in Alaska, Canada, Russia, Greenland, and some northern islands owned by Norway, such as Svalbard. Polar bears depend on the sea ice, which forms above the open waters where their seal prey lives. They will spend time on land when sea ice is not available. Polar bears are excellent swimmers, and they travel long distances between shore and sea ice if necessary. However, if a storm kicks up during these increasingly long swims, they can drown. These long swims and storms are also often difficult for cubs. During periods of ice breakup, polar bears frequently swim between floating ice islands. Diet. Kodiak bears are omnivorous, eating a variety of foods. The bear's large size is mainly due to the abundance of food readily available to them on Kodiak Island. In general, Kodiak bears are solitary creatures, though they often feed in large groups when food is plentiful. After hibernation, they feed on vegetation and animals that died the past winter. Starting in May, the bears feast on a salmon run that lasts into October. Fish are an important part of their diet. However, Kodiak bears will more often spend their time feeding on vegetation rather than put in the time and effort required to kill animals. They also feed on several types of berries, seaweed, and invertebrates. The polar bear's primary food source is seals. Their diet of meat makes them carnivores. If the food supply is plentiful, they will only eat seal blubber. This high-calorie meal helps the bears build up fat reserves, which keep polar bears healthy between feedings and help maintain their body temperature. If seal hunting isn't going well, polar bears will also eat anything they can find, such as fish, eggs, vegetation, reindeer, rodents, birds, berries, and human garbage. Behavior. For the most part, Kodiak bears are solitary. They will live in areas with other bears close by and even feed on the same food sources, but they do not remain in social groups. Bears will determine dominance using different noises and body language to avoid fights. As with other bear species, behavior varies based on proximity to humans. Bears that live in areas where human population is higher will be mostly nocturnal, while bears in more desolate areas are active during the day. Polar bears tend to live solitary lives, except when mating, when a female raising her cubs forms a family group, or when many bears are attracted to a food source, like a beached whale. Young polar bears spending the summer ashore on the Hudson Bay coast will frequently play with each other, most commonly with their siblings. Polar bears near Churchill on the coast of the Hudson Bay are even known to play with chained sled dogs without killing them, which they could easily do. Now it's time to find out who will win a fight between these two bears, Kodiak bear or polar bear. There is, however, little doubt how it would play out, because Kodiak bears are a subspecies of the brown bear. Polar bears are terrified of grizzlies, to whom they always give up their kill or carrion. If a 1,500-pound polar bear flees from an 800-pound grizzly, it surely will not stay to fight a 1,200-pound Kodiak bear, which is just about identical to a grizzly, except much bigger and proportionately stronger. At first glance, it seems that polar bears should dominate brown bears, because they are bigger. A deeper dive into the facts sheds more light on the question. A Kodiak may not have much of a physical disadvantage to a polar bear for the following reasons. Kodiak bears have the strongest forelimbs of any terrestrial predator, and this is due to the humps over their backs being part of the muscles that operate these powerful tools. Polar bear claws are primarily 3-inch cleats for good footing on ice. Kodiak claws are 4 to 5 inches long and much thicker. They are effortlessly used to dig huge holes in the ground, and can inflict far more damage than polar bear claws. Grizzlies match polar bears in the size of their canines and in bite force, 1,200 pounds per square inch, but are more robustly built. Perhaps all this is not enough to overcome the strength that accrues to sheer body mass, but there is one final factor that is the Kodiak bear's trump card: stamina. Polar bears have great stamina swimming in icy waters, but on land, even in the most frigid places, they quickly overheat due to their superb insulation conferred by their thick fur and layers of fat. If the contest between polar bear and Kodiak bear could occur, the polar bear would flee even more urgently than it does from grizzlies. The Kodiak bear is almost the same size as the polar bear, stronger and has far better stamina on land. The polar bear cannot afford to lose this battle, therefore would retreat to save itself. Who would win a fight between the legendary barbarian lion and the king of the northern land, the polar bear? The Barbary lion, also known as the Atlas lion, is an African lion subspecies formerly native to North Africa, including the Atlas Mountains, that is now considered extinct in the wild. Polar bear, also called the white bear, sea bear or ice bear, great white northern bear, is found throughout the Arctic region. Both were and are apex predators in their range. Being such strong animals, what do you think would happen if they came face to face and had to fight? Let's find out. First of all, let's talk about their size and appearance. The Barbary lion was once thought to be one of the largest lion subspecies, if not the largest of all lions and African felidae. Male Barbary lion museum specimens were described as having very dark and long-haired manes that extended over the shoulder and to the belly. Stuffed males range in length from 7.8 to 9.2 feet, from head to tail, 2.4 to 2.8 meters. A 19th century hunter described large accounts of the weight of wild males as very heavy, ranging from 600 to 660 pounds, 270 to 300 kilograms. Because temperatures in the Atlas Mountains are much lower than in other African regions, particularly in winter, Barbary lions may have developed long-haired manes. Polar bears are the world's largest carnivorous land mammals. They are approximately 7 to 8 feet, 2.1 to 2.4 meters long, from the tip of their very short tail. A large one can weigh over 1,700 pounds, 771 kilograms. Many of the polar bear's physical adaptations help it keep warm and deal with its icy environment. The outside layer of fur on the bear is hollow and reflects light, giving the fur a white color that aids in camouflage. The skin beneath the polar bear's fur is actually black. Polar bears also have a thick layer of fat beneath the skin that acts as insulation on the body, trapping heat. Polar bears have powerful legs and large flattened feet with some webbing between their toes, which helps them swim and walk on ice. Now let's see if these animals could have met in the wild. Barbary lions lived in the Atlas Mountains range countries, including the Barbary Coast. By the mid-19th century, their numbers had significantly decreased. By 1890, the last survivors in Tunisia had been wiped out. Barbary lions were thought to have become extinct in the wild in the early 20th century, in the 1970s. A thorough review of hunting and sighting records, however, indicates that the last Barbary lion was shot in the Moroccan Atlas Mountains in 1942. Barbary lions were spotted in Morocco and Algeria until the 1950s, and small remnant populations may have survived in remote areas until the early 1960s. Polar bears are mostly found north of the Arctic Circle, all the way to the North Pole. Polar bears can be found in Alaska, Canada, Russia, Greenland, and some Norwegian-owned northern islands. Polar bears rely on sea ice that forms above open waters. When sea ice is unavailable, they will spend time on land. Polar bears are excellent swimmers and can swim long distances between the shore and the sea ice if necessary. Polar bears frequently swim between floating ice islands during periods of ice breakup. Permanent, multi-year ice that never melts is more important to polar bears than annual ice that melts and reforms every year. This multi-year ice is becoming increasingly rare, but it will likely last longer in the island archipelago of northwestern Canada than in Alaska or off Russia's northern coast. Now let's see how and what they hunt. Big cats are all carnivores, with a preference for large prey. In the Atlas Mountains, they fed on Barbary stag and gazelle, and elsewhere on red deer and wild boar. When these became scarce, they would attack domestic livestock on farms, such as sheep and cattle. This frequently resulted in a lethal confrontation with humans, determined to protect their livelihoods. Unfortunately, their hunting methods were never accurately documented, but it is assumed that, like the Asiatic lion, they would strangle their prey and divide the kill amongst their pride. Polar bears, unlike other bear species, eat almost entirely meat. They primarily consume ringed seals, but may also consume bearded seals. Polar bears hunt seals by waiting for them to surface to breathe on the sea ice. When the seal gets close to the surface, the polar bear will bite or grab it and drag it onto land to feed. They also consume whale and walrus carcasses. Polar bears will seek out bird eggs and other food sources, but none of these are plentiful enough to support polar bears' large body mass and dense populations. Seal pups born and raised in Arctic ice dens are another important food source in most areas. The polar bear recognizes these dens through smell and other cues and pounces through the roof to capture the young seals. And the last thing we will dwell on before the final battle is their behavior in the wild. Barbary lion males and females came together only to breed. Their breeding season is thought to have been in January. Their gestation period in captivity was approximately 110 days, after which 1 to 6 cubs were born, with 3 to 4 being the most common. The cubs were covered in very dark rosettes. Cubs stayed with their mother until they were 2 years old, at which point they separated. Polar bears are solitary creatures. When there is a chance to scavenge after a seal is killed, they may compete with each other. In such cases, the smaller bear will usually flee. Polar bears can dive underwater to catch prey, keeping their eyes open and their breath held for up to 2 minutes. They spend the majority of their time lying, sleeping, or waiting. The remaining time is typically spent traveling, either walking or swimming, feeding or stalking prey. Now that we're done comparing these two predators, let's see who would win a fight: Barbary lion versus polar bear. As with any hypothetical animal battle, numerous factors can influence the outcome, including size, agility, strength, who strikes first, and who is lucky enough to land a decisive injury. Although polar bears have the size and raw power on their side, Barbary lions have been known to engage and subdue Cape buffaloes, which are even heavier and larger than polar bears, all without the assistance of the rest of the pride. Although this is a rare occurrence, it is a testament to the animal's power. Lions, as members of the cat family, have enviable manual dexterity and agility, allowing them to move with greater flexibility and speed. On the other hand, the polar bear boasts an immense degree of not only upper body strength, but also a devastating bite, powerful enough to generate sufficient enough force to break bones. The bear's substantial amount of fat and musculature also provides it with greater endurance than a lion. Lions have killed brown and polar bears in cage fights numerous times. There are more records of lions killing bears in cage fights than vice versa. Overall, the outcome of the said battle is anyone's guess. It all depends on who gets lucky with the decisive strike. I believe a dangerous animal like a lion has a chance if it can flank and wear down the bear with quick attacks and bleeding wounds, but the odds are heavily stacked in favor of the bear. It only takes one good hit for the bear to win. The cat is always dangerous, but size and weight are against it. A lion would pose no threat to an adult polar bear. I think the lion would have a chance, or maybe 2 out of 10, if the bear was smaller. Otherwise, the bear would win this fight. So let's see who would win a fight between a polar bear and a Siberian tiger. Polar bears and tigers are the apex predators. They stand at the top of their food chain. Polar bears, also called white bear, sea bear or ice bear, great white northern bear, found throughout the Arctic region. Except for one subspecies of grizzly bear, the polar bear is the largest and most powerful carnivore on land. It has no natural predators and knows no fear of humans, making it an extremely dangerous animal. The Siberian tiger, also known as the Amur tiger, is the largest of all of the wild cats in the world. Today, there are only about 400 Siberians to be found in the wild. Description: polar bears are stocky with a long neck, relatively small head, short rounded ears, and a short tail. The male, which is much larger than the female, weighs 900 to 1600 pounds, 410 to 720 kilograms. It grows to about 5.3 feet, 1.6 meters, tall at the shoulder, and 7.2 to 8.2 feet, 2.2 to 2.5 meters in length. Sunlight can pass through the thick fur, its heat being absorbed by the bear's black skin. The broad feet have hairy soles to protect and insulate, as well as to facilitate movement across ice, as does the uneven skin on the soles of the feet, which helps to prevent slipping. Strong, sharp claws are also important for gaining traction, for digging through ice, and for killing prey. The Siberian tiger averages about 11 feet, 3.3 meters in length, with a tail measuring 3 feet, 1 meter. Adult male Siberian tigers can weigh up to 700 pounds, 320 kilograms, while females are significantly smaller, weighing up to 400 pounds, 180 kilograms. Siberian tigers are distinguishable by their striped fur. Similar to people's unique fingerprints, no two tigers have the same striped pattern. Siberian tigers differ from other tigers because they have fewer, paler stripes, and they also have manes. The mane, in addition to their thick fur, helps keep them warm. Habitat and distribution. Polar bears are only found in the Arctic. The most important habitats for polar bears are the edges of pack ice, which currents and wind interact, forming a continually melting and refreezing matrix of ice patches and leads. Because of climate change, the coastal plain is becoming a more critical denning area, with the decrease in sea ice. While some populations are doing okay, the southern Beaufort Sea population that resides in the Alaskan and Canadian Arctic is struggling to survive, with only an estimated 900 bears remaining, a decrease of over 50% from earlier estimates. This big cat lives in a much smaller area than it has historically roamed. Most Siberian tiger live in eastern Russia and northern China. Their population lives primarily in the Sokoty-Alin mountain range. The primary habitats of the Siberian tiger are taiga, or snow forest, birch forest, and boreal forest. They live in very harsh conditions. Winters are extremely cold, and snowfall can be very high during the winter. The vast majority of the population lives in remote, mountainous regions, far from any human settlement. Much of their habitat choice also revolves around prey availability. Feeding. Polar bears are solitary and overwhelmingly carnivorous, feeding especially on the ringed seal, but also on the bearded seal and other pinnipeds. The bear stalks seals resting on the ice, ambushes them near breathing holes, and digs young seals from snow shelters where they are born. As their prey is aquatic, polar bears are excellent swimmers, and they are even known to kill beluga whales. In swimming, the polar bear uses only its front limbs, an aquatic adaptation found in no other four-legged mammal. Polar bears are opportunistic as well as predatory. They will consume dead fish and carcasses of stranded whales and eat garbage near human settlements. The Amur tiger needs large prey to survive, and its main prey species are ungulates, wild boar, sika deer, and red deer. In the summer, tigers may prey on smaller animals such as badgers and raccoon dogs. Bears comprise about 3% of the tiger's diet. There are rare cases on record of adult brown bears being killed and eaten by Amur tigers. Brown bear cubs are killed more often, and the smaller Himalayan black bear also appears on the Amur tiger's menu. Their hunting method primarily involves stealth. They get as close to their prey as possible and leap upon it to capture and kill it. Behavior. Polar bears are solitary except for mating pairs and females with offspring. They may come into competition with each other when there is the chance to scavenge when a seal is killed. Polar bears can dive underwater to catch their prey, keeping their eyes open while holding their breath for as much as 2 minutes. They are inactive for a good part of the time, lying, sleeping, or waiting. Unlike other bears, polar bears do not hibernate in the winter. Tigers are solitary animals, except during the mating season and when the females give birth. They like to be mostly alone, roaming their huge territories in search of food. They are territorial, marking their territory with scratch marks on trees. These animals are most active during the night, when their prey is most active. They can, however, be active at any time. They are very good swimmers and can kill prey while swimming. Now it's time to find out who would win a fight, a polar bear or a Siberian tiger. We are talking about the two largest and dangerous creatures of wildlife. If both come head to head, what will happen? Now, based on the fact that Siberian tigers sometimes do actually hurt and successfully prey on brown bears, much larger than themselves, say that the Siberian tiger definitely has a good chance of winning. And large brown bears are not that much smaller or less heavy than polar bears either. So if Siberian tigers can kill large brown bears, which they have been confirmed to do many times, it is very plausible to conclude that a Siberian tiger could win a fight with a polar bear with the same tactics it uses to successfully hunt and kill large brown bears. The Siberian tiger is the largest big cat. It's very fast and moves with great speed, higher agility, a strong, large, muscular body frame, big and powerful jaws, very long, dagger-sharp canines, and razor-sharp, retractable claws that are curved for gripping very tight. Its disadvantages are that they are lighter in weight, not as large and bulky compared to the biggest bears. Their skin is not as thick as a bear's, and low stamina level. Polar bears are the largest land mammalian predator. It is so huge and has a very bulky physical build, a very thick, fatty layer of skin that is hard to penetrate in most areas. Very heavy total body weight, very strong and large paws. The disadvantages of this bear are that they have short and small canines compared to tigers. Claws are very long, but not very sharp. Slower movement and reflexes. Definitely not as fast as the big cats, and very little agility. Neither animal is good at stamina. Polar bears overheat quickly, and tigers are built more for brief attacks of aggression. For a Siberian tiger without the element of surprise versus a fully grown polar bear, it's a fairly safe bet that the absolutely massive size of the polar bear will help it win in a death match versus the world's largest cat. However, if a fully grown large Siberian tiger has the element of surprise, then it might get lucky enough to sever sufficient bones and sinews in the bear's neck with its crippling, incredibly powerful neck ambush. Russians have also found tiger fur in bear poo, indicating these massive land predators do occasionally attack and kill tigers. So I'd say that they are equally matched, with a 50-50 chance of both the Siberian tiger and polar bear winning in a fight with each other. It could go either way, all depending on which animal uses its weapons and strength in the best way to gain the upper hand. Gorilla versus polar bear. Who would win? Forget about a gorilla versus 100 men. A gorilla would destroy a human. He'd just have to do it 100 times. Let's talk about a fair fight. Let's give the gorilla an adversary that's large, maybe one of the largest adversaries we could match him up with, a polar bear. The gorilla and the polar bear are both at the tops of their games respectively, so if we matched them up against one another, who would win in a fight? Want front row seats to the gorilla versus polar bear matchup and others? Subscribe so you're first to see how every matchup goes down. What do they look like? Humans go crazy trying to formulate ideas as to how a group of them could take down a gorilla. They wonder how many humans would be needed to defeat a gorilla. A dozen? 2 dozen? 100? In the end, we're unsure how many it would take, but the number isn't one. It's a large number, and that's because though humans are advanced apes, they are far from being top ape. That title belongs to the gorilla, the largest living ape in the world, and it's not even close. Some humans exceed 6 feet tall. The largest gorillas, silverbacks, they can be 6 feet 5 inches. Sure, a human may be that tall, but are they going to weigh 450 pounds? Of course not. A gorilla's punch could shatter a human skull with one strike. It isn't just about the fact that they're 2 times or 3 times the weight of a human, their muscles are far superior. They have the fast twitch muscle fibers that we don't, so a swing from a gorilla would happen in an instant before you could even react. Those fast twitch muscles are similar to that of the ambush predators of lions, jaguars, and tigers. Gorillas have dark hair all over their bodies, some subspecies getting brownish-reddish hair on their heads, and of course, there are the aptly named grey-haired silverbacks. Those are the largest of all. Now, you want to talk about large, then let's talk about the polar bear. The gorilla may be the largest ape in the world, but the polar bear is the largest bear. And that's no small feat since there are some big bears out there. The polar bear is also the largest land predator, bar none. A polar bear will reach over 9 feet in length easily, sometimes longer than 10 feet. They'll be 1,200 pounds, and in some cases even closer to 1,700 pounds. They have thick bodies that keep them protected from cold environments, but they're full of muscles themselves. Muscles that are capable of lifting and dragging prey like walruses, 2,000 to 3,000 pounds. Muscles that allow this large land predator to run 25 miles per hour on land and swim 6 miles per hour in the water. Polar bears are a magnificent blend of power, speed, and agility. Their whitish fur blends in with their surroundings, and their build is a bit more slender than that of their cousin, the brown bear. Polar bears have wide paws that have adapted to being able to traverse ice and paddle through the water well. Is that important for the polar bear? You better believe it. He deals with a lot of ice and water. Where do they live? The polar bears deal with so much ice and water because of where they live, the Arctic. Contrary to popular belief, polar bears do not also live in Antarctica, only the Arctic regions. The northernmost regions of Alaska, Canada, Greenland, Norway, and Russia, 70 degrees north and above. You'll find them in coastal regions, but they also spend much of their lives on sea ice. They wander the frozen tundras of the Arctic, and they actually spend so much of their lives in the water that they are technically considered semi-aquatic mammals. A tundra is a cold, tireless biome. You couldn't find a more opposite place when you dive into the places where gorillas live. First, gorillas are only found on the continent of Africa, countries like the Democratic Republic of the Congo, Rwanda, Uganda, Gabon, Equatorial Guinea, Cameroon, and several others. The polar bear's habitat is treeless, but the gorilla's habitat is replete with trees. Gorillas are found in forests throughout these regions of Africa. Mostly you'll find them in lowland tropical rainforests, but there are also populations in montane forests and also bamboo forests. Regardless of what kind of forest, the gorillas live amongst the trees, and their homes are situated either on the equator or very near the equator, meaning they live in heat and oftentimes much humidity. What do they eat? So, if the polar bear and gorilla live worlds apart, are their cuisines that different too? The answer to that is yes, and for a variety of reasons. Let's start with the gorilla, living on or near the equator in Africa. He's huge, muscular. Your first thought might be that he gets ripped eating a lot of animal meat. Not at all. A gorilla might never touch any meat in his life, and if he does, it's probably just insects, and a very small amount of these very small animals. Some gorillas will have about 1% of their diet consisting of insects. Gorillas fall somewhere between being herbivores and frugivores for the most part. Western gorillas are seasonal frugivores, meaning when certain fruits are in high abundance, that's the diet. The mountain gorillas in the east only eat 3 different kinds of fruits because there aren't as many available at those high altitudes. However, the rest of the year for the western gorillas, and for many of our other gorillas, they'd be better described as herbivores. Yes, they eat fruits, but they also eat a lot of leaves, stems, roots, and bamboo shoots. The western lowland gorillas eat around 97 different species of plants, whereas the mountain gorilla in the east eats around 142 different plant species. All in all, it's a plant-based diet for all gorillas. Now, for polar bears, not only is the terrain and the food offered vastly different, their diet is completely different anyway. Polar bears are carnivores, so they are not worried about what plants they can find in the Arctic. Polar bears will eat ringed seals, bearded seals, harp seals, hooded seals, and harbor seals. Clearly, they like seals. A gorilla in Africa has no idea what a seal even is. Polar bears will also eat walruses, narwhals, and belugas as well, though they're much larger, so that is only on occasion, when they're able to track down a meal that big. Polar bears are also the most carnivorous of all bears, seeing as how there isn't an abundance of plants and berries around for them to feast on, like the grizzlies and black bears farther south have at their disposal. It's a small percentage of vegetation and kelp that they include in their diet, and sometimes they can catch reindeer, birds, and fish, but to reiterate, the polar bear loves seals. That's the bulk of their meals. How do they behave in the wild? So, how's a polar bear catching all these seals? And what's a day in the life of a polar bear like? Well, when hunting, polar bears may find a seal laying on the sea ice, so they approach slowly, head lowered, hiding their dark snout and eyes, so only the white of them blends in with the snow. Once they're close enough, they charge, attempting to catch the seal before they hop into their ice hole. Or they may approach from the water, only their nose exposed, and then lunge onto the sea ice before attacking. If the seals are already hidden in their lairs under the ice, the polar bears may approach quietly and then smash through the ice with their powerful paws, breaking into the lair and taking the seal out. Male polar bears tend to live solitary lives. However, if it isn't breeding season, they're quite tolerant of being in the presence of other males. Mothers travel with their cubs until they're closer to adulthood, and sometimes several bears may be traveling together, including mating pairs, and sometimes finding other mother-offspring groups to form composite families. Now, a gorilla family or a troop has a well-defined structure. A gorilla troop could be anywhere from 3 to 10 to even more individuals. It will usually have one adult male, the leader. He is the silverback, characterized by the silver stripe of hair on his back, and he will likely be at least 14 years old. There will be several adult females and their offspring, and occasionally there may be more than one adult male. Usually the adult males will leave the troop in search of forming their own, and will try to attract females to come with them, but if they stay, they may be a second in command after the silverback. The silverback is the one who decides where the group goes, where they forage for food, and he is the main protector. However, the younger males, the blackbacks, also help in protecting the entire family. What if they fought? These silverbacks are excellent at protecting the troops from threats in the African rainforests, but they've never seen the threat of the bear that is as white as ice, the polar bear. What would happen if a gorilla and a polar bear met and fought? Polar bears don't get too territorial with other polar bears, but they surely wouldn't like the sight of this big gorilla getting too close. They've never seen anything like this big ape. Most animals they see have flippers, and the ones with feet never walk on their hind legs. And the gorilla will be shocked by the sight of this white animal. He's never seen any bears. The closest thing he could relate this polar bear to is some type of humongous leopard, maybe. It's strength on strength as the pure white polar bear and the black-haired gorilla clash, creating a black and white image of violent swings and bites. The gorilla packs an impressive punch, and the range he covers with those arms is something the polar bear has never had to defend against. He's gone after walruses that use their girth and tremendous tusks to stave off attacks, but nothing has ever been able to swing a fist at him, and those fists do damage. However, as strong as the gorilla is, he is still outweighed by the polar bear. The polar bear has about 3 times the weight of the gorilla. He's muscular, not in the same way as the gorilla, but he's got power, able to drag weight 3 times his own weight. The polar bear can put the hurt on with vicious swipes from his paws, and he'd certainly use his weight to his advantage. Gorillas have had to defend against other gorillas, and sometimes have even been confronted by leopards and crocodiles, but never a massive bear over 1,000 pounds. This is a complicated task, and if the polar bear gets his mouth close enough to bite, watch out, because that bite is a force to be reckoned with. A polar bear's bite is comparable to that of a grey wolf, 1200 psi, one of the strongest in the animal kingdom. It makes sense seeing as how he is a carnivore and needs to be able to sink his teeth past blubber and thick skin. What doesn't make nearly as much sense is that the gorilla actually has a stronger bite, 1300 psi. He doesn't even eat meat, but if he needs to defend himself, his jaws can do serious damage. The gorilla's mouth is wide, but not quite as wide as the polar bear's mouth. The force is stronger, but the polar bear would have an easier time wrapping his larger mouth around a vulnerable body part and clamping down. Polar bears are skilled hunters, so that works to their advantage. However, gorillas are skilled fighters, having to do so within their troop if there is a challenger, or perhaps dealing with rival troops. If the gorilla could use his agility and lethal punches quickly, he could get the upper hand. He'd want to act fast and do serious damage to the polar bear right away, because the longer this fight went, the better advantage the polar bear would have. He's got the weight advantage, and each blow he delivers, whether with a big paw or a big bite, it weakens the gorilla, and then the polar bear can put his weight on the smaller ape. The polar bear, being much larger, has the advantage, but not an overwhelming one. Perhaps he'd win 60% of the time. The gorilla is too lethal, too strong, too agile to be ignored. It's the biggest ape versus the biggest bear, and it's a big fight. The biggest punches and the biggest bites. Whoever wins, we know for sure, the bigger they are, the harder they fall. What would happen if a polar bear ended up having to fight a white shark? Who would win? There have been a number of unusual animal kingdom battles that have been reported to happen, such as orcas preying on moose. The surrounding world can be very strange. Sharks, for example, come in contact with both species that reside in the ocean's depths and those that are close to the shore. Bears are among the animals that inhabit areas with coasts, and they have a reputation for swimming while traveling and hunting. People all over the world are fascinated by the white shark. It's the largest predatory fish on the planet, and it's been around for more than 11 million years. Polar bears, also known as white bears, are truly massive carnivores native to the northern hemisphere's Arctic Circle. These majestic bears, famous for their white fur and appearance in soda commercials, are on the threat of extinction. Size and description. These are massive sharks. Adults can grow to be up to 20.9 feet, 6.4 meters long, with the female being slightly larger than the male.
Their reported maximum size is 23.5 feet, 7 meters. A white shark can weigh up to 7,500 pounds, 3,400 kilograms, but they typically weigh around 5,000 pounds, 2,267 kilograms. The dorsal or top part of a great white shark's body is blue-gray. When viewed from above, this helps them blend in with the ocean floor. The ventral or belly part of the body is white. With sunlight shining in around them, it's difficult to see the sharks from below. They have powerful tails and strong torpedo-shaped bodies that help them swim. Great white sharks can reach speeds of up to 15 miles per hour, 24 kilometers per hour. Polar bears are the world's largest carnivorous land mammals. They are approximately 7 to 8 feet, 2.1 to 2.43 meters long from the tip of their very short tail. Male polar bears are significantly larger than females. A large male can weigh over 1,700 pounds, 771 kilograms. Many of the polar bear's physical adaptations help it keep warm and deal with its icy environment. The outer layer of fur on the bear is hollow and reflects light, giving the fur a white color that aids in camouflage. The skin beneath the polar bear's fur is actually black, but only on the nose. Polar bear foot pads have a non-slip surface that allows them to get traction on slippery ice. Polar bears have powerful legs and large flattened feet, with some webbing between their toes, which helps them swim and walk on ice. Range and habitat. The great white shark inhabits the continental shelf and open waters of temperate seas and oceans, occasionally venturing into tropical zones. They can be found anywhere from the surface to depths of 4,200 feet, 1,280 meters. The white shark is a highly migratory animal that can be found all over the world's oceans. White sharks congregate off the coasts of California and Mexico every year in what was once thought to be considered the desert of the Pacific. Researchers refer to this vast and seemingly empty ocean expanse halfway between California and Hawaii as the White Shark Cafe. Polar bears can only be found in the Arctic Circle, and most of them live in and among the sea ice. When the ice melts in some warmer areas during the summer, they will retreat north to areas where the ice is frozen all year. They can be found in Canada, Russia, the United States, in Alaska, Norway, and Greenland's far north. These bears have evolved specifically for a life at sea and on sea ice. Sea ice is made up of large sections of frozen surface water during the winter. Because their prey is most abundant in these areas, they prefer to live where the sea ice meets the ocean. The ice will break up and float away, and the bears will swim out to sea, following their prey. Food habits. White sharks' mouths are lined with up to 300 serrated triangular teeth arranged in several rows, and they have a keen sense of smell to detect prey. They even have organs that can detect the tiny electromagnetic fields that animals produce. Other sharks, crustaceans, mollusks, and seabirds are among their prey. Larger white sharks will eat sea lions, seals, and small-toothed whales. It has even been observed feeding on dead whales. Polar bears, unlike other bear species, eat almost totally meat. They primarily consume ringed seals, but may also consume bearded seals. Polar bears hunt seals by waiting for them to surface to breathe on the sea ice. When a seal gets close to the surface, the polar bear will bite or grab it and drag it onto land to feed. They also consume whale and walrus carcasses. Behavior. Great white sharks are mostly solitary creatures that only congregate to mate, but they have been seen in pairs or small groups around large carcasses. They are highly adaptable and powerful predators that rely on other senses to detect their prey rather than their eyesight. They can travel long distances by flexing their bodies and moving their powerful tail fins from side to side. Polar bears are solitary creatures. When there is a chance to scavenge after a seal is killed, they may compete with each other. In such cases, the smaller bear will usually flee. Polar bears can dive underwater to catch prey, keeping their eyes open and their breath held for up to 2 minutes. They spend the majority of their time lying, sleeping, or waiting. The remaining time is typically spent traveling, either walking or swimming, feeding or stalking prey. Now, let's see who would win a fight, a polar bear or a great white shark. The anatomy and habitat of a shark and bear differ significantly. When a bear and a shark fight, their bodies, fighting styles, and performance in the body of water where the fight will take place will be the most essential factors. The majority of bears do not live in water, despite what some people might think. The polar bear can swim in the water quite easily, though. In terms of size, it is clear that a great white shark has the advantage. In the sea, sharks move more quickly than bears. Bears can run at 35 miles per hour, 57 kilometers per hour on land, but in the water, even the most agile swimmers can only swim at roughly 6 miles per hour, 9.6 kilometers per hour. Sharks, on the other hand, can easily cruise at 10 miles per hour, 16 kilometers per hour, and can reach 35 miles per hour, 56 kilometers per hour, when they are trying to kill their victim. In terms of speed, it is clear who has the advantage. White sharks have excellent vision, but their hearing is only sensitive to low frequencies. But they can smell or taste 1 part per 10 billion parts of chemicals in the water, and may also sense animals according to their electrical fields. Sharks identify their prey using their senses before ambushing them. When they do this, they will bump into them, bite them, and then rip out a significant portion of their flesh. Typically, bears will charge down on their victim, attack with their claws, and then bite them in the neck. But in the water, things are not the same as on land. Even though polar bears can swim long distances, they aren't fish. But a 700-kilogram bear against a 2,300-kilogram shark, that's in its element. Polar bears are terrifying predators, but a bear has no chance against a shark that size in its element. A bear with claws and a weaker bite force will struggle to compete against a predatory shark with a bone-crushing bite force, a mouth filled with 300 serrated teeth that cut through flesh and blubber like nothing else, a hyperextending jaw that could allow it to bite the bear's entire head, and superior underwater senses, combined with a threatening hunting tactic. Even in shallow water, I'd go with the shark. The bear has almost no chance in deep water. A shark would win a fight against a bear.
Polar bear versus walrus. Who is the king of the Arctic? The polar bear is often called the king of the Arctic. Within the frozen realm of this renowned bear, there lives another powerful Arctic animal who does not readily submit to ursine rule, the mighty walrus. Polar bears, also known as white bears, are truly massive carnivores native to the Arctic Circle in the northern hemisphere. These predators are known as hypercarnivores, which means that over 70% of their diet comes from meat. Known for their characteristic white fur and participation in soda commercials, these great bears are in danger of extinction. Walruses are the gentle giants of the Arctic. They are among the largest pinnipeds, fin-footed, semi-aquatic marine mammals. However, while they have an intimidating size and are carnivores, these animals are not aggressive. Size and description. Polar bears are stocky, with a long neck, relatively small head, short, rounded ears, and a short tail. The male, which is much larger than the female, weighs 900 to 1,600 pounds, 410 to 720 kilograms. It grows to about 5.3 feet, 1.6 meters tall at the shoulder, and 7.2 to 8.2 feet in length, 2.2 to 2.5 meters. The tail is 3 to 5 inches, 7 to 12 centimeters long. Sunlight can pass through the thick fur, its heat being absorbed by the bear's black skin. Under the skin is a layer of insulating fat. The broad feet have hairy soles to protect and insulate, as well as to facilitate movement across ice, as does the uneven skin on the soles of the feet, which helps to prevent slipping. Strong, sharp claws are also important for gaining traction, for digging through ice, and for killing prey. Walruses weigh from 1,320 to 3,300 pounds, 600 to 1,500 kilograms, and can be as long as 10.5 feet, 3.2 meters. Males are about twice as big as females, have longer and thicker tusks, and usually have thicker skin. Walruses have large, flabby bodies covered in brown or pink skin. Short fur covers most of their bodies, except for their fins. Their faces feature 2 small eyes, a mustache, and 2 long tusks. Walrus tusks can grow up to 3 feet, 1 meter. The tusks are canine teeth and stick out from either side of the animal's mouth. Walruses use their tusks to break through ice and to assist in climbing out of the water and onto the ice. The animals also use their tusks to defend themselves from large predators and to establish dominance and a hierarchy among walruses. Range and habitat. Polar bears are found only in the Arctic Circle, and within the Arctic Circle most live in and amongst the sea ice. In some warmer areas, during the summer when the ice melts, they will retreat north to areas where the ice is frozen year-round. They can be found in the northernmost reaches of Canada, Russia, the United States, in Alaska, and Greenland. These bears are uniquely adapted to a life at sea and on the sea ice. Sea ice is composed of large sections of the surface water that freezes during the winter. Their favorite habitat is where the sea ice meets the ocean, because their prey is most prevalent in these areas. This ice will break up and float away, and the bears will swim and follow their prey out to sea. Walruses inhabit areas in the Arctic that are largely made up of ice. Walruses prefer areas with shallow water so they can easily access food. This slow-moving marine mammal spends the majority of its time in or around water. Females spend more time on ice opposed to the males, who spend most of their time on sand or boulder beaches. Walruses migrate north during the summer and south in the winter. The migrations ensure that the walruses can be where the most optimal ice is found. Optimal is defined as relatively thin ice, but thick enough to hold the enormous weight of their bodies. Diet. Polar bears are carnivores, which means the vast majority of their diet is made up of meat. Their primary source of food is seals. Most kills are made when a seal surfaces in an air hole or climbs onto the surface of the ice. They utilize still hunting by waiting silently at an air hole until a seal surfaces, and then snagging the seal with its large paws and pulling it onto the ice. When food is scarce, they have also been known to hunt muskox, reindeer, eggs, birds, crabs, rodents, carrion, and even one another. While walruses eat all sorts of small aquatic creatures, their food of choice is the clam. To find clams, walruses dive to shallow sea floors and search with their sensitive vibrissae, whiskers. Once found, the walrus will seal its lips to the clam's shell and then quickly withdraw its tongue back into its mouth, which creates a vacuum, sucking the clam right out of its shell. Walruses will also prey on seals and even narwhals if they're trapped by ice. They typically can dive to a depth of about 80 to 90 meters and stay underwater for 30 minutes at a time. Behavior. Polar bears are solitary except for mating pairs and females with offspring. They may come into competition with each other when there is a chance to scavenge when a seal is killed. In such cases, the smaller bear usually runs away. Polar bears can dive underwater to catch their prey, keeping their eyes open while holding their breath for as much as 2 minutes. They are inactive for a good part of the time, lying, sleeping, or waiting, still hunting. They spend the rest of the time traveling, either walking or swimming, feeding or stalking prey. They are excellent swimmers and may travel far in search of food. Walruses live in a hierarchical system based on age, body size, and tusk length. The older and stronger the walrus, the higher up it will be in the hierarchy. The male walruses establish dominance and compete for females by fighting with their tusks. The tusk fighting takes place while the walruses are at haul-out sites, which are usually rocky or sandy beaches near the water. The walruses go to these haul-out sites to rest and sleep. Walruses can move the fastest while in the water. Walruses are social and spend most of their time with other walruses of the same sex. Female walruses stay in one herd, while males stay in another herd until breeding time. Sometimes the packs can range from hundreds to thousands. So, what will happen if these two inhabitants of the Arctic come face to face with each other? The polar bear and the walrus are completely different from each other, and have some features that are unique to them and help them in making them a good predator. Despite the huge disparity in size, polar bears do hunt walruses. Substantially, when hunting walruses, polar bears prefer to target young calves, weak and sick adults, or individuals that have strayed too far from the safety of the group, all while avoiding fully grown, healthy pinnipeds. Nevertheless, even an injured walrus remains a formidable opponent for the polar bear, and that is what makes direct attacks pretty rare, and can even force a hungry bear to give up on assaulting, despite its desperate need for blubber. The bear will try to scratch and bite it again with its sharp teeth. Though the polar bear couldn't make a great impact on the thick skin of the walrus, but the walrus does hit back with its 4-foot tusks. The polar bear is also swift enough to anticipate the attack from the walrus and escapes the stabbing of the walrus. The polar bear will have the advantage over a walrus on land, but in most cases you will find that when walruses get attacked by a polar bear, they try to flee towards the water, and that way they gain the advantage. The walrus uses its tusks as the major weapon and makes the kill successfully.
Polar bear versus crocodile. Who would win? Gather round, because today we have a battle of giants. We aren't just bringing you a fight between two worthy adversaries, it's a fight between the best of their respective classes. It's the largest living bear, the polar bear,
versus the largest living reptile, the crocodile. It's a matchup of big on big, two animals that dominate their surroundings, and we are going to see if one dominates the other. Who would win in a fight between a polar bear and a crocodile? What's that battle even going to look like? And where in the world are we going to stage it? Polar bear. We're going to meet the polar bear first. So in order to do that, we're going to have to go to him. He is, after all, the world's largest bear. We don't really get to make him go places, not at that size. So in order to meet the polar bear, we're going to travel all the way to the Arctic and the surrounding areas. They can be found in Alaska, Canada, Greenland, Russia, and Norway. You can find them right in the Arctic Ocean and also on many tundras and islands. The polar bear is closely related to the brown bear. In fact, they're so closely related that the two can actually interbreed. But when you're talking about a pure polar bear, the largest bear on Earth, that is a massive being. In fact, that also makes them the world's largest land carnivore. The polar bear really breaks a lot of records. Polar bears are sexually dimorphic, meaning one gender tends to be far larger than the other. In fact, of all mammals, the polar bears have a much higher difference in their sexual dimorphism than most. In this case, the males are much bigger. They will often be between 8 and 10 feet long and weigh over 1,700 pounds. The largest recorded polar bear actually weighed in at 2,200 pounds. They stand about 5 feet tall at the shoulder. Like we told you, polar bears are huge. For one, they need to be big, especially when it comes to storing fat, in order to survive the harsh and frigid temperatures that their habitats have. Another reason the polar bear has to be so big is because it is a hypercarnivore. More than 70% of its diet consists of meat, so it needs to be able to track down prey and kill them. The polar bear needs to be large, strong, fast. Essentially, they need to be an efficient hunting machine. They need to be able to catch their favorite prey: ringed seals, bearded seals, and harp seals. Sometimes they will go for walruses if they need to, focusing on the younger ones that aren't as big and haven't developed their tusks nearly as much. Polar bears will also go after reindeer beluga whales and narwhals. A polar bear is not only an apex predator of the Arctic, it is an impressive hunter. Hunting in the cold, on land, and in the water, this bear is versatile. The fact that they can transition from land to water with ease and still manage to take animals down is a major feat all on its own. The polar bear can run 25 miles per hour, and on ice too, so that's impressive. It can hit speeds of up to 6 miles per hour when swimming in the water, and though that isn't lightning fast, they have the ability to go extremely long distances in the water. Polar bears can swim for hours, days if they need to. Their paws are specially adapted to allow them to swim with great ease for long distances. Polar bears have thick, sharp, curved claws which help them to grip onto their prey and pull it out of hiding spots. Their claws are 3.75 inches long, smaller than their brown bear cousins, but we're not about to say a 3.75-inch claw is small, and those teeth are sharp too, needing to be able to bite through the thick blubber of their prey. 42 sharp teeth to be counted in their mouths. That's a horror show if you're a seal. And the bite force of a polar bear measures in at 1,200 pounds per square inch, making it the strongest bite force of any bear. Biggest bear, strongest bite force of any bear. These polar bears really have a lot to brag about in the Arctic Circle. But will their adversary have a lot to brag about too? Crocodile. We will meet our other apex predator, but we'll have to go to a totally different region of the world. In fact, it's basically the opposite region. Crocodiles live near the equator, and yes, they stretch north and south of it, but not so far. Crocodiles live in Africa, Southeast Asia, India, Australia, and they're found throughout the Americas, especially in Central America. You see, crocodiles are reptiles, so they are cold-blooded. This means they are heavily dependent on the temperature and on direct sources of heat and cold to warm and cool their bodies. They love being in the water so they can cool off when they need to, but they love that sun in order to warm their bodies up. We're going to look specifically at the saltwater crocodile, the largest of all the crocs and the largest reptile. Saltwater crocodiles are interesting when it comes to how they grow. The longer they get, the more they weigh, but their weight increases cubically. For instance, if you have a 17-foot crocodile, it will probably weigh around 1,000 pounds. But if you have a crocodile that is 23 foot long, which is about as long as they get, they'll weigh about 2,200 pounds. The crocodile is 6 feet longer, but it weighs more than twice the amount. And that's a good way to describe these reptiles: bulky, wide, low to the ground, and dangerous. If the size measurements didn't already clue you into their danger, then consider this. They can swim up to 18 miles per hour, so if you're in the water with a croc and it finds you to look delicious, you're already done. No human can get away from that speed. Maybe they look funny when they move on land, but they're still quick. They get to where they want to go, and if their prey is close enough, those jaws snap shut in a hurry. The saltwater crocodile has a bite force of around 3,700 pounds per square inch, and its mouth is filled with 66 sharp teeth, so when that jaw clamps down with the power of a small car, whatever is inside that mouth is done. And if the unlucky recipient of a crocodile jaw clamp is still fighting to get away, the crocodile may engage in a death roll, looking to twist its way into killing its prey. Crocodiles will go after whatever they can get their jaws on. They're quite opportunistic, whether it's birds or fish or gazelles or baby hippos or any other unlucky animals. The crocodile is excellent at sneaking up on its prey, gliding through the water undetected, getting within the perfect range, and then snapping into action. Once the crocodile has got a hold of its target, there really isn't much the target can do. So that doesn't sound like a pleasant time. But will our polar bear have anything to say about that? Fight time. We have two unique fighters in this scenario. The two fighters feel like they couldn't be any different, but then again they have so many similarities too. You wouldn't look at a polar bear and a saltwater crocodile and think that they share many things in common, but the more you think about it, they're quite alike. Both of these animals are apex predators, and they are top of their class. The polar bear is the largest bear in the world, and the saltwater crocodile is the largest reptile in the world. They're both found in extreme temperatures, even though those extreme temperatures are the exact opposite. And both of them move so easily between land and water, and excel in both. However, you have a mammal and a reptile. They're vastly different. Warm-blooded versus cold-blooded. One's low to the ground, and one carries itself high off the ground, or the ice. So if these two were to fight, the environment would matter. Think about if we were to put a crocodile in the Arctic, it wouldn't last more than a few days. The polar bear would only have to wait it out, and even if they battled right away, the crocodile's body temperature would be dropping dramatically, and it wouldn't have the energy. The polar bear wins automatically. Now, if we were on the equator, where the crocodiles thrive, the polar bear might be taken off guard. The temperature change wouldn't affect the polar bear as much as it would affect the crocodile to go up north, but it would play a big factor. The polar bear is expecting to have to carry a lot of fat to keep warm, and suddenly he's in an environment that's very warm. The crocodile would get an advantage there, though not as distinct. Now, if the two met on land, the polar bear is more agile and able to move around easier. That 25-mile-per-hour top speed is no joke, and looking at the body type of a polar bear compared to a crocodile, he'd be able to leap onto the croc and destroy him. But in the water, we will note that the polar bear is an excellent swimmer, but not nearly as good as the crocodile. That's the croc's true home field advantage. The polar bear would not want to tangle with the croc in the water. Now he is the less agile of the two animals. He's lost his advantage, and he has yet another disadvantage. The croc is bigger and heavier. The polar bear, if in the water, would transform from the world's largest bear to a sitting duck. The crocodile would tear him apart. So it's clear the setting matters. What if we have an environment not too cold, not too warm, plenty of land and water available? What would happen? It's a close match to call, and if the match were run 100 different times, you'd get a lot of different outcomes. Anytime the polar bear went in the water, the crocodile would attack and get the better of him. That is, if the polar bear jumped in right away. If the polar bear were able to lure the crocodile out of the water, he'd be able to get his advantage back. Of course, getting to the croc on land would be ideal for the bear. He'd have to stay away from the mouth, because that bite is no joke. One snap of those jaws, and even our mighty polar bear would be in critical danger. Using the speed and agility the polar possesses, he could get behind the crocodile and then use his power to attack from behind, jump on top, use his own strong bites to inflict damage. But even if the polar bear were to just lure the croc out onto the land, wear on him, tire him out, even if the croc jumped back in the water, the polar bear may be able to attack, once again, from behind. You see, the temperature changes will affect the crocodile far more, and that's a game the polar bear wants to play. If the two fight on land, the polar bear needs to be smart, and he should have a good shot of winning. If the two are fighting for a long time, the long game works in favor of the polar bear. The polar bear is well suited for long-distance running, long-distance swimming, enduring trials and tribulations that go all day long. But if the polar bear is so unwise to immediately jump into the water with the croc, game over. If the polar bear is so unwise to run up on the crocodile and engage in battle face to face, game over for the bear again. The two have never met before, so we'd hope they'd feel each other out, try to determine their opponent's strengths and weaknesses. If they did that, the longer things went on, the better things are looking for our polar bear. But you never know. The two may jump right into battle, both eager to declare themselves the true apex predator, and that looks good for our Salty. We tend to lean in favor of the polar bear, just barely, but it's as close a match as you can imagine. It's the bear going for the long game, hoping to wear out his opponent, and it's the crocodile looking more like a heavyweight boxer, looking for that one-punch knockout, or in his case, the one-chomp knockout. Killer whale versus polar bear. Who would win a battle between these two apex predators from Arctic region? Since both polar bears and killer whales hunt seals, so interaction between these top predators is inevitable. Let's go into the Arctic region and let's see who wins this war. Orcas, or killer whales, are the largest of the dolphins and one of the world's most powerful predators. The orca or killer whale is also less commonly known as blackfish or seawolf. It is the largest species of the oceanic dolphin family. Polar bear, also called white bear, sea bear, or ice bear, great white northern bear found throughout the Arctic region. The polar bear travels long distances over vast, desolate expanses, generally on drifting oceanic ice floes, searching for seals, its primary prey. It has no natural predators and knows no fear of humans, making it an extremely dangerous animal. Size and description. Orcas are the largest members of the dolphin family. Males are bigger than females, but they vary in size and weight depending on the type of orca. The largest orca ever recorded was a staggering 32 feet, 9.8 meters long, and weighed 22,000 pounds, 10,000 kilograms. Orcas are known for their long dorsal fin and black and white coloring. The black and white coloring helps to camouflage them by obscuring their outline in the water. Just behind the dorsal fin is a patch of grey called a saddle, because it looks like a riding saddle. An orca's body is cylindrical and tapers at each end to form a hydrodynamic shape. This shape, along with the orca's large size and strength, makes it among the fastest marine mammals, able to reach speeds in excess of 30 knots, about 34 miles per hour, or 56 kilometers per hour. Orcas have massive teeth, which can grow up to 4 inches, 10 centimeters long. Polar bears are easily recognizable by their white fur, which yellows with age. Each hair on a polar bear is hollow, and The skin beneath its fur is black. Polar bears have an elongated body and face. With their small ears and tails and short legs, polar bears are adapted to life in the Arctic cold. Their large feet help distribute weight on ice and snow. Polar bears are extremely large animals. While both sexes look alike, males are about twice the size of females. An adult male ranges from 7.9 to 9.8 feet in length, 2.4 to 3 meters, and weighs 770 to 1,500 pounds, 350 to 680 kilograms. The largest male polar bear on record weighed 2,209 pounds, 1,001 kilograms. Range and habitat. Killer whales are found in all oceans. While they are most abundant in colder waters like Antarctica, Norway and Alaska, they are also found in tropical and subtropical waters. The most well-studied killer whale populations occur in the eastern North Pacific Ocean. Resident killer whales have been seen from California to Russia. They are not, however, exclusively offshore, as they are sometimes seen in coastal near-shore waters. Transient killer whales also occur throughout the eastern North Pacific and are often seen in coastal waters. Their habitat sometimes overlaps with resident and offshore killer whales. Polar bears are found only in the Arctic Circle, and within the Arctic Circle most live in and amongst the sea ice. In some warmer areas during the summer when the ice melts, they will retreat north to areas where the ice is frozen year-round. They can be found in the northernmost reaches of Canada, Russia, the United States, in Alaska, Norway and Greenland. The polar bear's scientific name means maritime bear. Polar bears are born on land, but they spend most of their lives on ice or open water in the Arctic. Diet. Orcas are at the top of the food chain and have very diverse diets, feasting on fish, penguins, and marine mammals such as seals, sea lions, and even whales, employing teeth. They are known to grab seals right off the ice. They also eat fish, squid, and seabirds. Orcas hunt in deadly pods that may prey on different animals and use different techniques to catch them. All pods use effective, cooperative hunting techniques that some liken to the behavior of wolf packs. Polar bears are solitary and overwhelmingly carnivorous, feeding especially on the ringed seal, but also on the bearded seal and other pinnipeds. The bear stalks seals resting on the ice, ambushes them near breathing holes, and digs young seals from snow shelters where they are born. As their prey is aquatic, polar bears are excellent swimmers, and they are even known to kill beluga whales. In swimming, the polar bear uses only its front limbs, an aquatic adaptation found in no other four-legged mammal. Polar bears are opportunistic as well as predatory. They will consume dead fish and carcasses of stranded whales and eat garbage near human settlements. Habits and lifestyle. Killer whales are highly social animals. They are active during the day and sleep at night. They travel in pods of between 3 to 50 individuals, led by females. They establish social hierarchies. These whales may share prey and seldom leave the pod for longer than a few hours. Pod members learn skills through apprenticeship, such as hunting and parenting. Killer whales are very vocal animals and communicate with each other using whistles and clicks via echolocation and through physical behavior such as breaching, slapping their tail or flippers, and spy hopping when they lift their head above the water. Polar bears are solitary except for mating pairs and females with offspring. They may come into competition with each other when there is a chance to scavenge when a seal is killed. Polar bears can dive underwater to catch their prey, keeping their eyes open while holding their breath for as much as 2 minutes. They are inactive for a good part of the time. They spend the rest of the time traveling, either walking or swimming, feeding or stalking prey. It's time for the battle. Let's find out who would win, killer whale or polar bear. Killer whales are top predators in the ocean and hunt the most marine mammals in the world. Well, there's only one logical place this fight can occur in: the water, which is the killer whale's element. Polar bears typically won't dare to attack aquatic animals in their own element. A bear is a strong swimmer, but they are still a land animal and don't swim nearly as well as something whose natural habitat is the water. Polar bears have been known to kill beluga whales, but only when the whale is weakened by a lack of food or is trapped, and it's still a challenge to catch one. A healthy beluga is way too fast. They will also avoid attacking a walrus in the water, since a walrus is hard enough to kill on land and can kill them with those tusks. Both of those animals are much smaller than a killer whale. Killer whales have also killed animals much larger than polar bears, so the bear would just be a big, juicy target floating on the water. If the polar bear is smart enough and large enough, it can bite and go for the orca's fin and cause substantial damage to the whale and drive it off. A fight in the water would see the whale win nearly 100% of the time, due to both the superior size of the whale and the fact that he has much better maneuverability in water. Do killer whales eat polar bears? No. Killer whales do not eat polar bears, and so they do not go out looking for them and killing them. Orcas are not opportunistic feeders. The same way that orcas don't attack humans, they also don't prey on the creatures not on their normal diet list. Polar bears are not on any orca subspecies menu, as far as I know, nor are they likely to be, as they could only very occasionally be found out in the water and unable to get to land. Neither are they a threat to orca calves, so the orca would not be bothered by their presence. Moreover, it will be very easy for killer whales to drag a polar bear cub from the ice sheets, just like they do with seals. However, so far there is no evidence that a killer whale has ever killed or eaten a polar bear. So, in my opinion, I don't see the polar bear having any chance against the killer whale.